another episode of Women in Focus. Our woman in focus today is a multifaceted young woman. Many jobs, many different professions, many myriad of ways of expressing her talent. Her name is Auroraa, and she is our woman in focus today. How are you doing?
I'm doing so well. Thank you for having me.
The very first time I heard about you is when your mother very excitedly showed us how beautifully you do salsa.
Thank you.
Are you still doing that?
I am still doing salsa. I mean, we are in the middle of the pandemic, beginning, and I don't know where we are, but we're somewhere in there. So my journey with salsa has changed quite a bit as a result of it.
Mm-hmm.
Salsa is a very, very social dance, and it's
Yes.
a very global dance. So two things that obviously changed a lot. And as a result of it, I don't get to do it as much as I used to, but my heart is still there, and I'm still very much in touch with my dance itself.
The other facet of your talent is singing. You just got into it during pandemic. Am I correct in thinking that?
Yeah, so I think in general, my relationship with the arts has been so full and complex through my life. I often say that I don't really get to choose what I'm doing, it chooses me.
Wow.
So I love being on stage, I love being on camera, I love being in a studio, and different times in my life has just given me different opportunities. And I think, with salsa, that was the major part of my life for the last few years, and I was able to just do it I was able to do it with no restrictions, right? And during that time, of course, the other aspects faded away. But then when COVID hit, I had to sit and be like, you know what? I love salsa, but I can't love it in the way that I want to right now. So either I have to be okay with, doing something at 50%, 70%, or whatever it is, or I have to go do something else at 100%. And that's when music, honestly, it just came to me. I couldn't even tell you how the pieces came together, but I think it was the right time. And what's funny is I was at home in Vancouver when COVID had just hit.
Right.
And my brother, is a very talented musical artist himself. So he has a little mic in his room.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just hanging out with him. And I think I took a picture with the mic, and as a joke, I posted on my Instagram. I said, should I revive my music career? I had never really had a music career at that point. I don't know why I made that joke. But it came up in my memories. I think that was in May of 2020.
Yes.
And so when it came up in my memories, and I was like, it just clicked to me that the world at that point gave me music. And it gave me music so that I didn't have to be doing something at 50%, 70%. I could just fully love something else at that point.
And then you dived
right in. I'm very 0 to 100. I can't do something unless I can do it fully. I don't love people unless I can love them wholly. So just in the same way, as soon as I started music, I was afraid in the beginning when I was around people and they said, oh, you should record a song, you should do this. I was like, nah, I don't do that, I don't do this. Because I think deep down I knew that the second I said yes, it was going to set off a chain of events that I even had no ability to stop.
And was out of your control.
Completely out of my control. And when I said yes, I was like,
okay.
All right, buckle up. You just signed yourself up.
Let me take you back. Were you born here in Canada? Were you born outside of Canada?
I was born in India.
Ah, and how old were you when you guys came to Canada?
I was 5 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
So do you have any memory of that time, going to school for the very first time? How was it?
It was very, very different, obviously. We had a lot of family and friends in India, and so I was always around a lot of people. I was very, very loved. I don't think there was a moment where I was alone. Mom used to joke. I just was that kid where I was always in someone's arms or being pampered by a grandparent or whatever. And then those are the things that I specifically remember, because obviously moving to Canada with just my family, that was a very different, complete environment.
Right.
So,
and no family here?
No family here.
So there must have been withdrawal symptoms?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, for myself, there were probably two major points
Yeah.
that incited change, I would say, in my younger years. One was when my brother was born,
Yes.
and I was around 3.5 then,
Mm-hmm.
and then the second was when I came here.
Mm-hmm.
So both of those things really changed my personality
Impacted you a lot.
quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting to find myself and even find those childlike things that maybe I had suppressed in through all of these changes and through the moves.
Isn't that interesting? We're not going to psychoanalyze you, but that would be a very interesting topic. So, growing up here, would you go back to India very often, or would you want to go back? And was there a time that you did not want to go back at all?
I think so. In the beginning, when we were settling in, the first 5-6 years, we didn't go back.
Hmm.
I really did want to go back primarily for my grandparents,
Yes.
who live with us in Vancouver now. They were kind of just like the home, the consistent aspect of India. So I did get to go back, and I did meet a lot of other family and friends, but I haven't actually gone back as much, especially since my grandparents moved here, because they were kind of the core for me.
Right. They were the linchpin, right?
Exactly. They're the
And-
people I would go to, who I would gladly spend my entire stay with.
So, when you were growing up, did you feel that mom and dad had certain expectations of you? Because all Indian parents do that, so I do ask that question
Yeah.
from all of them. So, was it spoken or was it understood?
Oh, it was spoken.
It was spoken.
Very, very clear.
Clearly.
I mean, I definitely also wasn't young, so I did understand some of those aspects as well. I saw my parents leave a very, very loving environment, a place that they had spent so many years building themselves up, to moving into probably what felt like a depressing, alone reset for them. And I know who they did it for. They didn't do it, they didn't do it for themselves, they did it for myself and my brother. So I understood just how much they had given up, and on top of that, I was very much told that I needed a certain set amount of grades. And I don't think that I was intrinsically motivated to do well by like grades necessarily. I
Right.
love learning, but that their expectations made it clear that that needed to happen.
I want to take a short commercial break, but come back and talk about your dancing, because I find that people who can dance, in my head, I dance beautifully. But you see me on a dance floor, and that's all I'm doing. So let's take a short break and we'll be back.
Absolutely.
Auroraa is our Woman in Focus today. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Women in Focus. Our Woman in Focus today is Auroraa, and we were talking about your art fascination. I think everybody is born with some ability to do something with arts, but you've been born in a family where your mother is probably had a little bit of an influence on your life.
Oh, a huge influence. The stuff that I've normalized in my childhood is listening to music all day, every day, hearing my mom sing it all the time. My mom also loved watching theater, so I would also go watch theater. Those things were just normal to me, and I don't know a life outside that.
Now, when I look at young women, young girls learning to dance, say classical Indian dancing, it's very rigid, very difficult. Whereas the dance that you are doing, it's also difficult, but it has a lot of movement in it and liquidity. Would that be a right way of explaining what salsa is?
Yeah, salsa is such a beautiful cultural melting pot. So there are so many different influences in the dance. And of course, the culture that it comes from and the place that it comes from is a very social, party-driven atmosphere. So it is very loose, it's very fun. It has a lot of flavor to it, and it definitely, for me, has changed my life in so many ways.
In what way?
I was quite lost, and I was lacking a lot of confidence. And that's something that, especially when you're young, but definitely throughout your life, that shows up in your physicality. And actually there are even, I would say psychology studies that will say that all of your trauma manifests itself in your body. So in some ways, when you can't directly deal with that trauma, you can actually use like movement therapy to fix it. And if I sometimes sit and I put everything together, that's what dance was for me. It was a place where I could just go and, before my emotions and my brain could understand how to, you know, be a part of a different culture or be a different person, my body was the way I was able to do it. And I think when I was younger, I really loved being feminine. I loved all of the things that came with it. But
A girly girl.
yeah, I was a very shy kid. I was in my own. I hated the spotlight. Like, I was not comfortable in my skin. And the first time I did any sort of like Latin dance was when I did cha-cha. And I think that was the first time I realized that I could be a female in the way that I always wanted to be. That I had the power that came with femininity.
How old were you then?
I was so young, I don't think it even made sense to me. I think I was 11 or 12.
Yeah.
And so I don't think I could have put those words together at that time.
Right.
But I just finally felt like I didn't have to be a tomboy just because I didn't look a certain way or I didn't dress a certain way. You know, if I wanted to be a tomboy because I wanted to play sports with the guys, I could go do that. But if I wanted to get on stage and be the most feminine, sensual, beautiful person, I could do that too. And dance, that's what it took me to. And that's the journey it took me on. And I didn't have to say the words, I didn't have to cry, I didn't have to speak the emotions, I could just focus on moving my shoulders and what that meant.
Beautiful.
And now I'm here.
You've explained that so nicely. I mean, there are many young women that go through that phase in their lives, right? And when you said in the beginning that you don't choose art, it chooses you. So that must have been the catalyst in this particular situation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've always just loved expressing myself and I've never known how to. So if something is there, like, I would love to just reach out and take it. Otherwise, the other aspect of my life, which is very academic driven, it's very desk work, it's very nerdy, I didn't always have all the options in front of me. You know,
Right.
I went to school at the University of Waterloo, which is a phenomenal school for everything academic related, but it necessarily is not the most cultural environment for arts and theater and all that. So I was limited even when I got there. And actually, they had a salsa club, and that was the only thing at that time that I was okay joining. Like, other
Right.
aspects, I was like, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that. But for whatever reason, that community there was very active.
Right.
It was thriving. It was connected to like the bigger Toronto community.
Right.
And it worked for me. And as soon as I found it, I was like, I'm not letting go.
So you were a part of that for quite some time. And also you would travel with the group and compete in competitions, salsa competitions, right?
Yeah. So
Anyone that stands out, the very first one or the one that was...
competition-wise,
Yes.
I mean, I have competed at the World Salsa Summit, which is the highest salsa competition at this time, and I was very grateful to place third in almost all of my categories.
Wow.
So that definitely stands out as one of my favorite experiences. And the second one, more than the first, because the first one, of course, you know, everything is new, it's exciting, I've only ever seen this on TV, now I'm here. But I remember leaving the first one, and from that day up until the second one, it's all I thought about.
Wow.
All I wanted to do was be back on that stage and feel that all over again.
Right.
And I think that, because we always say it's about the journey, that the journey that put me on, and then finally being able to go the second time and do all of the things that I just dreamt of, that's why the second one.
It's a huge high, isn't it?
I think after, so maybe not right after this going on stage or whatnot, but more like coming home to reality. Yes, that's a downer. However, what I discovered in my workaholic ways is that oftentimes people will do like a very big event and then they'll take a break right away.
Right.
And for me, I have to do the opposite because the high is so high. You know, I go to the world competition and I'm like, next year I'm coming back, I'm doing this. I start right away.
We have a clip that we can show here.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
Several.
let's have a look at this clip and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Women in Focus. And we talked about that in the beginning of the program, that you got into singing. But I do want to talk about your full-time job, because you have a full-time job.
I do.
You're not a salsa dancer or a singer, but you have to make money. And how do you make your money?
So presently I work as a software developer, and that means I code. I am that little hacker child sitting in front of my computer with these lines of what looks like gibberish.
Zeros and ones.
Unfortunately or fortunately, we have moved on to words now.
Oh, we have, okay, all right. In my world, it's only 010101.
I mean, I can do that too, but thankfully we don't have to.
Right. So it's all words now.
It is more words.
Okay, good. More words. Okay. I'm not going there because I don't know anything about it. So when you say that you are in coding and developing, so what sort of things do you develop?
Actually, I think what's more interesting is more recently I've been pretty heavy in the finance world, and specifically the crypto world. So on the side, I'm also working on some of my own projects, and I'm working on a little bit more of trade automation. Personally, I love the stage, and I want to know that if I can have an opportunity to be there, that I have automated away some of my hard work. And
that's a very good way of putting it. Yeah, so automating a lot of your own stuff so that you could then dance and sing.
Absolutely. That would be my dream come true.
Now, when we talk about coding and writing programs, anything that we use on computers or anything we use on our cell phones is all coded, and that's how we get it, right?
Yes, absolutely. Everything in this entire generation is touched by technology. So.
And one day when the power sort of goes away, then we are all looking at our phones and saying, no power, how am I going to
function? I know.
That's right.
But I think, what you bring up is, it's an interesting conundrum that I live with in my life, because I'm an artist and I love the idea of shutting off all of those things and being in the real world, but I can't deny the direction the world is going in, and I don't want to be left behind. So by studying something in the technology space, hopefully I'm able to set myself up so that I can stay on that ride and stay relevant, but still be rooted in some of the beauty that comes with the arts.
You're a very smart young woman, because you've satisfied your parents by doing what they wanted you to do. You went to university, got the best education, and are coding now, which in my books is pretty high up there. And also realizing your artistic, talents. Let's talk about your singing. Have you released an album? Have you released a single?
I've released 2 singles so
Wow.
far. There are a lot more just in the works, and I'm just finding the right times to get them out there. I was one of those people who, I wasn't necessarily singing every day all my life. So in this journey, I started singing and recording music quite quickly to each other. And there's a lot of learning that came with that. So part of this, while I'm so excited to release all of the things I do, I'm also trying to make sure I check myself and, I'm able to level up, so whatever I do release is high quality and something that hopefully people want to listen to, not just because I'm their friend.
So what moves you? What kind of music moves you?
I listen to a lot of R&B. That's kind of the space that I like to sing in, which is very interesting. A lot of the art spaces that I'm in are very culturally different from the culture I was brought up in. Salsa is rooted in a lot of the Latin world. R&B is rooted in a community that I never necessarily grew up in or was around. So even that has so much learning, in terms of history and whatnot. But I love R&B because it's very expressive in terms of emotionally, lyrically, melodically. It's quite advanced. I think that it has a lot more complexity than other genres might. But in general, it's just so soothing to me. I really relax when I listen to R&B. So I'm hoping to make more of that.
It's very romantic and...
Yeah, it has a lot of romantic aspects. It's just in general, it's very expressive. And I think that it's, not as sensationalized as some other genres, maybe it's a little bit more rooted in like the core emotions that we have, which is cool.
Now, you mentioned at the beginning of the program that art is something that you've always been interested in. So you've taken the performing and the singing, and one aspect of art that is left out is drawing and painting.
Yeah, I mean, that I'll leave to some more talented people. I've never been very drawn to that aspect.
Yes.
I don't know, it's just never been my forte.
It hasn't called you.
Yes, I think for me it's been a lot of the performing art.
Yes.
I love being on stage, I love being on camera. I've always said that it's more natural to me than me being in my own element sometimes, so.
Where do you see in the next 5 years?
I want to bet on myself, and I want to trust myself.
Good for
to
you.
come through, and I want to move away from maybe doing jobs for other people and more focusing on the projects that I really believe in or I've dreamt up. And we'll see where that takes me.
That's fantastic. All the more power to you.
Thank you.
And we'll keep checking on you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being our Woman in Focus today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Auroraa has been our Woman in Focus today. We'll leave you with a beautiful song that she sung, and we'll be right back.
I don't want a girl if I did it be you. Done heard all that talk before, but I don't want no more. Pretty little boys and they come into my door.